Hello everybody, and welcome to the first tutorial of actually coding the more advanced port scanner. Now we will code this port scanner in the Python 2. Basically we will use Python 2 to code it, so let us see how that will work. Let us actually first ls, and let us nano advanced scanner.py. You can call it anything you want, it doesn't really have to be the advanced scanner itself, but I just named it like that because it will be easy to differentiate it from the other scanners. So right now we need to start with the regular line, which is user bin Python, and we need to import 3 different libraries for this program. Now why am I calling it advanced? Well, I'm calling it advanced since it will have a better help option, or I don't know how to say it. You can specify the help option with the program itself, and it will prompt the users how they can use the program, which will be really easy to use for anyone running it. They can also specify the ports, the number of ports, the host, and also we will run the program with a threading library, which allows us to scan the ports faster than without the threading library. So we will use different threads in order to scan different ports, which then will actually simultaneously scan the ports and get prompted us back with whether that port is closed or open. So the 3 libraries that we need to actually import are the socket library, so we will use from socket import star. Now this basically means that from the socket library we want to import everything. This star right here basically represents everything. The next library we want to import is the opt_parse library, so import opt_parse. This library allows us to actually specify the help options that we will get prompted to the user, such as actually specifying the ports and specifying the hosts, and if they specify, for example, -h, which will stand for -help, they will get the usage of the program printed out. And the third library is the library that I mentioned, which is the threading library. So from threading, we want to import everything. Now, you might be asking, why are we not just importing, for example, socket library like this? Well, basically, since we are going to use this a lot, I believe, we will just specify from socket import everything, so that we don't have to specify the socket prefix in every function we use for the program. So make sure to specify it the same as I did, since some functions, if you just specify it as an import socket and import threading, will not really work. So let's see what we actually need to do in order to get this program to work. What we will have is, we will actually have a main function, so let's call it main, which will take no arguments, of course. And here we will actually code the available options for the user. If the options are well specified by the user, then we will continue to actually scanning the target and printing whether the port is open or closed. So let's see how we can do that. We can do that with simply using a variable which we can actually call parser, which will then equal to the function we will use from the opt_parse library. So that function will be opt_parse and then dot. The name of the function is option parser, and then between the brackets in option parser, let us open and close the brackets, we want to specify, for example, the usage of the program itself. So we can just do that by specifying them between the double quotes, and here we will actually type here usage of program, so of program, and then 2 dots, space, and then here we want to specify what they need to specify in order to actually run this program. So plus, we want to plus this. Now this plus basically means it will add a string to another string, so we need to specify that plus and then open another quotes, so open and close the quotes, and -h, capital H, or you can use lower letter h, it doesn't really matter, and then we want to specify target host, and then -p, or let's actually use the h to be smaller, or bigger h will be the target host and smaller h will be the help option. Or we will even see, it doesn't really matter. let's use -p for the ports, and here we will specify target ports. So this is the simple usage of program that will get printed out once the user actually specifies the command wrong or doesn't really know how the program works, so they will get printed out this part right here, and after that they will know what they need to do in order to run this program correctly. So right now what we need to do, since we specified the -h to be target host, which is the IP address of the host they want to scan, target, not target, and -p to be target ports or port, so let's just leave it on port so that then they don't get confused. And right now, what we want to actually do is add both of those options to our parser. We use the add option function to do that. So parser dot add underscore option. And then we need to open and close the brackets. And what we want to do is specify some of the settings for our -h option, which in our case is target host. So between the double quotes, specify minus and then capital H, if you specify capital H right here. And then after that, comma, and then, comma, and then you need to specify destination to be to our variable, which will actually take the input from the target host. So we can call that variable whatever we want. So let's call it TGT host, which stands for target host. Now this actually needs to go between the quotes. So let's specify the quotes right here. TGT host, then specify after that comma, and then the type of that variable is string. So type equals, and then we need to specify between the single quotes string, which stands for that variable actually being a string itself. And the help, which will be something that the user will actually get prompted, will be, for example, for this option, again between the double quotes or the single quotes, pardon me, specify, or let's do it like this. Specify target host. So this is just parsing the first option, which is -h. Let's do the same for the second option, and we can do that just by copying this line right here. So copy, then we will paste it right here, so we don't actually write it, and we will change what we need to change. So the parser.add option is the same, and now we want to actually parse the option -p, which is the target port. The variable cannot be the same, so let's name the variable to be target port. The type of the variable will still remain the string, and the help will be specify target ports separated by comma. Now why are we using target port separated by comma? Well, we will add a function to the user, or basically an option to the user to specify multiple ports that they will specify, or that they will actually separate by the comma itself. Now all we have to do is to actually first parse the arguments to the variable, so options, comma args, and then we need to use the parser, which is our variable right here, and we need to parse those arguments. Now basically, if you are new to this, this can be a little bit difficult syntax, but it doesn't really matter. This is just the syntax of the Python library itself. It is not really something to worry about. Basically, in this ops parse library, there are the functions such as add option, parse args, that are used to actually specify different settings for this program. This is really optional thing. We just want to make it the best we can. This really isn't really needed for the port scanner itself, as we saw in the previous videos where we actually managed to scan the ports, whether they are open or closed, without using this. But if we want to, for example, put this program on GitHub, we want to actually make it a little bit prettier and a little bit more user-friendly. So all we have to do right now is actually specify our variables. So we used two variables, the target host and the target port, and right now we need to set them to be target host equals options.target host. Since we only specified them in these two lines, we didn't really specify them as a variable itself. So right now we need to make sure that the target host is referring to the options.target host, which is this right here. We need to do the same for the ports. So we will use now the variable called TGT ports. In this variable, we will actually use the ports that the user specified that are separated by comma, so we need to actually see how we can actually separate them. We can do that simply with this. So first of all, equal sign, then the ports need to be string, and then from the options, we will use the variable tgt port, and we need to split them, so split each port with the comma. We will use the split function to do that. So what this will do, if for example we specified something like this, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we want to scan first 4 ports, what this will do is it will add all of these ports to the target ports, but it will separate them from the comma, since if you try to scan a port with a comma, it will not work and it will prompt us with an error. This function split allows us to actually split them by the comma itself. So all we have to do right now is actually check if the user specified correct arguments for the program, and then we can actually proceed to the scanning of the ports. Now we can do that like this. So if target host equals to none, which basically means if they didn't specify anything to be a host, and if target, or basically and or if target ports, since our variable right here is called ports, which is a list, basically holds on to the 0 variables or 0 ports, that means that our program has nothing to scan, or basically equals to none. We want to actually print the usage of our program, which is this right here. So usage of program. We want to print parser.usage. Once we print that, we want to actually exit the program. You can exit the program with this command right here. And in case that everything is good, so in case this isn't satisfied, we want to proceed to the function which we will actually call port scan, which will take 2 arguments and which we will code in the actual next lecture, not really now. It will take 2 arguments, which is target host and target ports. And this is basically the usage of our options right here. So let me just see if we actually run the main. So let's run it, and let's put this under the hashtag as a comment, since we don't really have the port scan function yet. So let us just save this, Control-O to save, and let us try to actually run this. We need to make it an executable with chmod +x function. And then we actually run the advanced scanner. And we get printed the usage of program, since we didn't specify -h for the host and -p for the port. So our help option works well. Now in the next lecture, we will try coding the port scan function, which will actually perform the threading on actual scanning the ports themselves, and then we will see how that will work. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!